Dr. Abdullahi Edward, representing the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, distinguished participants, dear colleagues and friends from IFPRI, Rajul, Ascenso, David. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure to take part in this important launch event and to be given the opportunity to say a few words on the occasion. At a time when we are just coming out of the high-level expert meeting on how to feed the world, a world of 9 billion people by 2050, followed by a World Summit on food security, triggered by the fact that the number of people suffering from hunger and poverty on our planet now exceeds 1 billion. It is most comforting to hear of and learn from proven agricultural successes that have contributed to feeding millions. I recall with excitement my participation in the first meeting of the advisory committee of IFPRI's project on successes in African agriculture, exactly 9 years ago. That was in November 2000. For the simple reason that this was an undertaking away from the usual trend of discourse, even lamentation, on failures of and constraints to agricultural development, particularly in Africa. Rather, this initiative aimed at identifying, understanding, and documenting what worked and what could work again. IFPRI is to be commended for this very encouraging work of dispelling through a rigorous identification and assessment of successes in agricultural development throughout the world, the often pessimistic perspective in facing up to the challenge of attaining food security for all. Ladies and gentlemen, against the worrisome hunger and poverty situation of our region, we at ECA hold to the strong view that Africa has all it takes, not only to solve its own food crisis, but also to be a significant part of the response to the global challenge of feeding an increasing world population. Indeed, this continent is not short of land, as no more than half of the total area suitable for agriculture is yet exploited. The region is not short of water either. Only 4% of available water resources are used, and only 6% of arable land is irrigated, meaning that we have a big scope for doing more. Africa, therefore, presents a potential for harnessing those resources to increase considerably food production and supply, not only for the continental market, but also for global markets. To take advantage of these growing market opportunities, however, African agriculture must undergo a structural transformation that entails shifting from highly diversified and subsistence-oriented production systems towards more market-oriented ones. This requires both a bold shift in policy and substantial investment to overcome the severe undercapitalization, low productivity, and competitiveness of the sector. Fortunately, since the turn of this millennium, there has been a renewed political interest among African leaders and their development partners in supporting agriculture as a priority sector. The NEPAD has been very instrumental in bringing up agriculture on the regional and international policy agenda with the adoption of CADEC in 2003. crisis that have wiped out the world in 2007 onwards have also contributed to the wake-up call for addressing boldly the challenges of agricultural development for food security, economic growth, and poverty reduction. And timely enough, the overall theme of the last African Union Summit, held just in July, was investing in agriculture for economic growth and food security. Distinguished participants, efforts at transforming African agriculture must address two major impediments. First, such efforts must help bridge the poor linkages of African farmers backward to agricultural input markets and forward to product markets which, even in this region, are increasingly demanding for processed food and agricultural commodities. This clearly points to the need for a comprehensive value chain approach to agricultural development, where the focus goes beyond the narrow confines of the farm stage to embrace the agro-industry and agribusiness stages that connect farmers to the markets. Second is the high degree of fragmentation of the African agricultural market among 53 countries and more than a dozen sub-regional groupings. This landscape does not provide for the level of economies of scale, economies of vertical coordination, and economies of complementarity that would allow the full realization of competitiveness gains and intra-regional trade potential for African agriculture. Let me stop here to just illustrate this by some trends. When we look at the total continental agriculture and food import bill for the whole Africa, this bill has been increasing from an average of $13 billion a year in the 1980s to $16 billion a year in the 1990s, and is now standing at $33 billion a year that the continent is paying to agriculturists outside of the region for feeding our people. And this is not acceptable because we have the resources. And as Cecil was saying, purely harnessing science and technology, looking at our policies, looking at what is constraining our agricultural systems in terms of institutional frameworks, in terms of let's say, technological constraints must be fully addressed. Against this regional perspective, and within the CADEP framework, ECA has advocated for the development of the regional integrated value chains approach of strategic food and agricultural commodities in Africa. Because looking at the problem, particularly through maybe some of the pure understanding behind this progressive food import bill might be attributed to those two facts. First is that the African farmer is not connected to those markets. And to illustrate the case, research can do a great job in coming up with good seed varieties and so on and so forth. Let's take America, the revolutionary rice variety. But for it to go from the research station to get to the farm level, we have a whole segment of agribusiness, seed multiplication, seed distribution, financing systems to take into account. Otherwise, the technology will be there, sitting on one side, the poor farmer is sitting on his farm and not getting access to the technology. The second is clearly, as we say, now is about, I think my last recollection is the urban demand for food in Africa is about $50 billion a year. And this demand is projected to grow to $150 billion by 2030. So there is no excuse to say that agriculture is not moving within the continent because of lack of market. There is a huge market, and that's effective demand. It's not food aid. It's what people go to the Bambis, to some of those supermarkets to pay on a daily basis in Africa. So that market is there. But the African farmers are not getting to it. This is the reason why we think that by working seriously, not only on the farm level, but also on the agribusiness level, would be very important. Through such an approach, regional integration, particularly of the market, would offer economic space for profitable private sector investment, particularly in agribusiness. Effective public-private partnerships can help deliver the necessary infrastructure. Regional research centers of excellence would help tackle the technological challenge, while appropriate policies and institutional frameworks would serve to promote cross-border investment in transnational joint agribusiness ventures in preferential agricultural investment zone. That we have this kind of a picture like the American commodity beds, where you have corn beds and so on. Why do Africa have its maize bed, its dairy beds, its rice beds, and other things, and structure the whole continental market to provide incentives for investment. We look forward very much to learning more from the proven successes in agricultural development across the world with a view